What's going on, everyone? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Ducks Dish podcast. I'm your host, Max Torres. Appreciate you guys taking some time out of your day to talk some Ducks with us. You guys can find the Ducks Dish podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and a host of other podcasting platforms. You can also find us on YouTube at Oregon Football Max Torres if you guys want to check out that multi-platform excellence. If you guys happen to be watching on YouTube, kindly ask that you smash the like and subscribe button, as it is a tremendous help to what we are doing, trying to cover the Ducks. So we have a version of Oregon recruiting rundown to get into today, Saturday, May 21st, 2022. A couple of headlines to get through, as well as some big recruits that are going to be on campus in Eugene this weekend that I want to talk about. So without further ado, let's get into this episode of the pod. So starting things off, Oregon picked up another commitment, its third commitment of the week, from a specialist, and that is former Cincinnati kicker Alex Bales, who spent the last 3 years with the Bearcats and redshirted in 2019. Some stats to shed a little bit of light on Alex Bales. Like I said, 3 seasons with the Bearcats, played in all 13 games last season, and racked up a total of 4,985 yards on kickoffs, 43 of which resulted in touchbacks. So it seems like the Ducks are trying to shore up some special teams depth. That is surprisingly an area that they've seen a ton of turnover in this offseason. You have Will Hutchinson, Race Malum, both entering the transfer portal. Let's see. And then you also have Henry Cattleman and Cristiano Palazzo, 2 kickers entering the transfer portal as well. The Ducks did sign Washington State transfer kicker Andrew Boyle in February, but he was not with the team during spring football, and it's not really known right now when he is expected on campus in Eugene. So a couple other specialists that the Ducks have landed this week. You have JUCO punter Ross James, and then former Temple punter Adam Berry, who joins the fold. So Dan Lanning, Joe Lorig, looks like they're really putting an emphasis on overhauling the special teams unit for the Ducks here in the offseason. And then just a reminder that Dan Lanning did say that Tom Snee was away from the program following the end of the spring game just about a month ago. So we're still kind of waiting to see what happens with Tom Snee, but Ducks are making a lot of additions on special teams rather. And then some more news. Looks like the Ducks are in a great spot with 2023 Brennan defensive back Tyler Turner out of San Antonio, Texas, as he was just on campus for a visit last weekend. And then on Friday, he announced that he is going to be working from a top 2 of Oklahoma and Oregon. No decision date set just yet for the defensive back, but he is a former Baylor commit, so you know that he's got some big-time programs that have recruited him during this process, with Dave Aranda and the Bears winning the Big 12 last year. Definitely got to focus on Matt Powledge in this recruitment, as he is the face of Oregon's recruiting efforts in the Lone Star State. And the Ducks don't have any safeties in the fold just yet, but Tyler Turner would be a great one to start with. Like I said, no decision date set right now, but it looks like he's going to be choosing whatever school he chooses is going to have a first-time head coach with Brent Venables and Dan Lanning and 2 defensive minds. So Tyler Turner is a guy to keep an eye on here as the Ducks look to continue building their 2023 class. This is really that sweet spot when it comes to the recruiting calendar year. You want to keep getting guys as you kind of transition from the spring to the summer, so that you're able to have a majority of your class, hopefully, ideally, wrapped up by the time the season comes around. And then you can kind of focus on those heavy hitter guys, those guys who want to drag out the process throughout its entirety, whether that be the early signing period or the regular signing day. It depends now with how things have gone in recruiting. The main recruiting day is the early signing period in December. But some guys do end up waiting until February, and then the age of the transfer portal has made things a bit chaotic now. But Tyler Turner, definitely a solid prospect that you got to have on your radar, as it looks like the Ducks could be in a prime position to add him seeing that he narrowed his choices down right after that visit to Eugene. And then now the Ducks are also going to be hosting a lot of really strong names on campus for a visit this weekend. And we're going to talk about a couple of them, but we are going to do that on the other side of the break. So I ask that you guys stay with us, and we will see you after this. All right, welcome back to the Ducks Dish podcast. We are rolling right along here on our Oregon recruiting rundown for Saturday, May 21st, 2022. Talking about some big time prospects that are in town to visit Oregon. And I'm going to start off with 2023 Oklahoma wide receiver commit Ashton Cozart. He is a 4-star prospect on the 247 Sports Composite, rated a 0.9305, number 164 player in the country, number 22 wide receiver prospect, number 32 player in Texas. He's at Marcus High School in Flower Mound, Texas, with 34 reported offers. So he is a big, big name on the recruiting trail for Oregon. He's been committed to Oregon since February. Sorry, committed to Oklahoma. I'm getting my O's mixed up. Got to slow down here a little bit. Cozart's been committed to Oklahoma since February, so still a fairly recent commitment for him and the Sooners. You got to figure that the Sooners have been a premier destination for wide receivers in recent years under Lincoln Riley, who is now in Southern California leading the Trojans. But for Oregon, they've been on fire at the wide receiver position, right? Just since Junior Adams took over, right? You have Chase Cota, who committed to Oregon. You have Justice Lowe, who the Ducks flipped from Utah. And then you also have Kyler Casper, the 2023 wideout, who reclassified to 2022. And then recently, Jurion Dickey, the Bay Area wide receiver, who took home wide receiver MVP honors at the ESPN Elite Underclassmen camp that I was at last weekend out in Oakland. He just showed up, competed, and just was an absolute stud. So the Ducks are in a really good spot as far as just how they're doing on the recruiting trail at that position in particular. So Cozart is definitely someone to keep an eye on here as he's on campus this weekend. We'll see if that ends up resulting in anything, but it seems like the Ducks are starting to build some momentum with that recruitment. And then we have another wide receiver that's on campus actually, but he's coming from the JUCO ranks, and is Hutchinson College wide receiver Malik Benson. He is rated a 4-star prospect, a 91 on the 247 Sports JUCO rating, but he's the number 1 JUCO prospect in the entire country, number 1 wide receiver. And man, his recruitment has absolutely exploded the second time around, with him pursuing his college football career in the JUCO ranks. 25 reported offers, and the Ducks are in a good spot here heading into this official visit. Like I said, Hutchinson Community College out in Kansas, and he's working from a top 5 right now that consists of Georgia, Tennessee, LSU, Alabama, and Oregon. Oregon is getting the first official visit from the looks of things right now, but LSU and Tennessee are also expected to get official visits, with his LSU trip being set for June 3rd and the Tennessee trip set for June 10th through 12th. So since he's working from a top 5, pretty clear that those are going to be the schools that he visits officially. But let's talk about this guy in the 2021 season. The stats that Malik Benson put up at Hutchinson: 43 catches, 1,229 yards, which comes out to 117.7 yards per game, and 11 touchdowns. And then I already talked about how strongly the Ducks have been recruiting the wide receiver position so far. Another name that we need to keep an eye on right now is Caleb Chapman, the Texas A&M transfer wide receiver. Some reports were coming out that he has committed to Oregon Friday evening, but I'm still working on confirming that myself with Ducks Digest. Chapman tweeted a duck emoji, but never really came out outright and said, "I'm committing to Oregon." So, kind of just a small tidbit to add there. A commitment could be big, but still working on confirming that one. So by the time this gets posted, maybe that is officially official, as we said so much during the transfer portal era, and then during the coaching carousel, when it looks like new guys were getting added to the Dan Lanning's coaching staff, and then we had a lot of official announcements. But big news as far as guys to watch on campus, taking a visit to Eugene this weekend at the wide receiver spot. And then the last guy that I want to spotlight that is in town for a visit is 2023 Texas defensive end commit, Johnny Bowens. Let's see what we have on Johnny Bowens. He's been committed to the Aggies since Christmas of last year. He's a 4-star prospect, number 207 prospect in the country, number 28 defensive lineman, and number 34 player in Texas. He is a native Texan. He goes to Judson High School in Converse, Texas. And I think this would be a big get for Oregon if they are able to make up some ground in this recruitment, seeing that the Aggies are red hot on the recruiting trail after signing an absolutely ridiculous recruiting class in 2022. We all know about the crazy drama that's been going on between Jimbo Fisher and Nick Saban regarding name, image, and likeness deals, with Saban calling out the Aggies for quote unquote buying every player in that class. So Texas A&M is definitely a big name on the recruiting trail right now and just within news. But man, getting the defensive lineman out of Texas is always a good thing. The Ducks are in a great spot with DJ Hicks, with him coming on campus this spring. He is the number 1 defensive lineman in the country, I believe, for 2023. So Johnny Bowens, throw him in the mix with DJ Hicks for names to watch coming out of the Lone Star State. I did say that he was the last prospect I was going to talk about, but I can't forget about another big name also in the trenches, and that is 2023 Timpview offensive lineman Spencer Fano. He's back in Eugene this weekend. He hasn't been in Eugene for quite a while. I know that I got to see him a little bit in person at the 2021 Saturday Night Live recruiting camp for Oregon, and he really, really held his own. I think going into his senior year, he's probably working on building out his frame a little bit more. He's listed on 247 at 6'5", 270 pounds, and he is an Adidas All-American. Hasn't been incredibly active on the recruiting trail of late, has taken some recent unofficials to Michigan and Michigan State, and both of those schools are doing really well on the recruiting trail. I think Michigan State is someone that kind of just gets discounted on the recruiting trail. I know as far as an Oregon connection, the Ducks were going after Jarek Broussard, the Colorado running back transfer. They were in a great spot for him, but he ended up pledging to Michigan State and Mel Tucker. So this is a big name to watch for Oregon, because look at some of the trench talent that's come out of Utah of late, and just well the Ducks have done in that state. Look at as recent as 2023. Right now, you have a commitment from defensive lineman Tavita Pomee. So the Ducks know that there's a lot of really good talent out in Utah. I think specifically in the trenches, because they have a lot of body types that you really don't find too often. Certainly on the West Coast, they have some guys, you look at a lot of big time Polynesian prospects like Pomee, who I just mentioned. Both the Sewell brothers came out of Utah. Jackson Powers Johnson, Jeffrey Bossa. I'm sure there's a couple other that I'm missing off the top of my head. Harrison Taggart, another guy from Corner Canyon, which is really becoming a Western power, one of the best schools in Utah. But there's a lot of schools in the mix here, with Utah and BYU being some other big contenders to watch here. But Spencer Fano, number 120 player in the country, number 2 player in the state of Utah. Really big for Oregon to get him back on campus, as the Ducks are looking at a host of really big names at offensive linemen. You look at Miles McVay, a huge offensive line prospect out of St. Louis. Caden Proctor, a 5-star offensive lineman out of Iowa. So more names that we got to keep an eye on here. I'm pretty positive that both of those guys are working on setting up officials to Oregon. Not quite sure on the timeline right now, but I'm going to do a little bit more digging and see what I can bring you guys on Oregon offensive line recruiting. But I just wanted to hop on here and give you guys a quick little rundown of some of the biggest names to keep an eye on for Oregon right now here on the weekend, as the Ducks look to keep building that momentum. That's really the name of the game right now. Keep building momentum, get really talented guys out to campus any way you can, whether it be unofficial or official. I think that to get guys big time talent out here on the recruiting trail. That'll do it for this episode, you guys. Really appreciate the continued support. We're just trying to keep growing the pod, so go ahead and share it with your family, your friends, other Duck fans. You guys can find me on Twitter at mtorresports. You can find more of my Oregon Ducks written content over on ducksdigest.com. You can find us on YouTube at Oregon Football Max Torres. And we will catch you guys in the next episode. Hope everyone's having an awesome weekend. And we're out.